Welcome. Today we will read Lesson 101 in the workbook, and from the text, Chapter 10, Section 3, The God of Sickness, paragraphs 1 through 6. And now for Lesson 101. God's will for me is perfect happiness. Today we will continue with the theme of happiness. This is a key idea in understanding what salvation means. You still believe it asks for suffering as penance for your sins. This is not so. Yet you must think it so while you believe that sin is real and that God's Son can sin. If sin is real, then punishment is just and cannot be escaped. Salvation thus cannot be purchased but through suffering. If sin is real, then happiness must be illusion, for they cannot both be true. The sinful warrant only death and pain, and it is this they ask for. For they know it waits for them, and it will seek them out and find them somewhere, sometime, in some form that evens the account they owe to God. They would escape him in their fear, and yet he will pursue, and they cannot escape. If sin is real, salvation must be pain. Pain is the cost of sin, and suffering can never be escaped if sin is real. Salvation must be feared, for it will kill, but slowly, taking everything away before it grants the welcome boon of death to victims who are little more than bones before salvation is appeased. Its wrath is boundless, merciless, but wholly just. Who would seek out such savage punishment? Who would not flee salvation and attempt in every way he can to drown the voice which offers it to him? Why would he try to listen and accept its offering? If sin is real, its offering is death, and meted out in cruel form to match the vicious wishes in which sin is born. If sin is real, salvation has become your bitter enemy. The curse of God upon you who have crucified his Son. You need the practice periods today. The exercises teach sin is not real, and all that you believe must come from sin will never happen, for it has no cause. Accept atonement with an open mind, which cherishes no lingering belief that you have made a devil of God's Son. There is no sin. We practice with this thought as often as we can today, because it is the basis for today's idea. God's will for you is perfect happiness, because there is no sin, and suffering is causeless. Joy is just, and pain is but the sign you have misunderstood yourself. Fear not the will of God, but turn to it in confidence that it will set you free from all the consequences sin has wrought in feverish imagination. Say, God's will for me is perfect happiness. There is no sin, it has no consequence. So should you start your practice periods, and then attempt again to find the joy these thoughts will introduce into your mind. Give these 5 minutes gladly to remove the heavy load you lay upon yourself with the insane belief that sin is real. Today, escape from madness. You are set on freedom's road. And now today's idea brings wings to speed you on, and hope to go still faster to the waiting goal of peace. There is no sin. Remember this today, and tell yourself as often as you can, God's will for me is perfect happiness. This is the truth, because there is no sin. The importance of happiness, we are told, is that one believes that one's salvation, one's awakening, will be painful and requiring some form of sacrifice and loss. This underlying belief leads to resistance, conscious or unconscious, to opportunities to recognize one's real self. One's efforts to open to the truth are then met with fear and sometimes sabotage. Where the fear originates is from one's belief in sin. Believing one has attacked one's source and the truth by separating from oneness, one feels guilty, and guilt requires punishment. As one begins to release obstacles to the awareness of love's presence, the fear of punishment increases, and one retreats from experiences of unity. This is why it is so important to undo one's belief in sin. Having released the idea of sin, happiness rather than pain is then seen as the consequence of remembering who one is. And now for our text reading for today from chapter 10, section 3, The God of Sickness, paragraphs 1 through 6. You have not attacked God, and you do love him. Can you change your reality? No one can will to destroy himself. When you think you are attacking yourself, it is a sure sign that you hate what you think you are. And this, and only this, can be attacked by you. What you think you are can be very hateful, and what this strange image makes you do can be very destructive. Yet the destruction is no more real than the image, although those who make idols do worship them. The idols are nothing, but their worshippers are the sons of God in sickness. God would have them released from their sickness and returned to his mind. He will not limit your power to help them, because he has given it to you. Do not be afraid of it, because it is your salvation. What comforter can there be for the sick children of God except his power through you? Remember that it does not matter where in the sonship he is accepted. He is always accepted for all. And when your mind receives him, the remembrance of him awakens throughout the sonship. Heal your brothers simply by accepting God for them. Your minds are not separate, and God has only one channel for healing, because he has but one Son. God's remaining communication link with all his children joins them together, and them to him. To be aware of this is to heal them, because it is the awareness that no one is separate, and so no one is sick. To believe that a son of God can be sick is to believe that part of God can suffer. Love cannot suffer because it cannot attack. The remembrance of love, therefore, brings invulnerability with it. Do not side with sickness in the presence of a son of God, even if he believes in it. For your acceptance of God in him acknowledges the love of God he has forgotten. Your recognition of him as part of God reminds him of the truth about himself, which he is denying. Would you strengthen his denial of God and thus lose sight of yourself? Or would you remind him of his wholeness and remember your Creator with him? To believe a son of God is sick is to worship the same idol he does. God created love, not idolatry. All forms of idolatry are caricatures of creation, taught by sick minds too divided to know that creation shares powers and never usurps it. Sickness is idolatry because it is the belief that power can be taken from you. Yet this is impossible because you are part of God, who is all power. A sick God must be an idol, made in the image of what its maker thinks he is. And that is exactly what the ego does perceive in a Son of God. A sick God, self-created, self-sufficient, very vicious, and very vulnerable. Is this the idol you would worship? Is this the image you would be vigilant to save? Are you really afraid of losing this? Look calmly at the logical conclusion of the ego's thought system and judge whether its offering is really what you want. For this is what it offers you. To obtain this, you are willing to attack the divinity of your brothers and thus lose sight of yours. And you are willing to keep it hidden to protect an idol you think will save you from the dangers for which it stands, but which do not exist. There are no idolaters in the kingdom, but there is great appreciation for everything that God created, because of the calm knowledge that each one is part of him. God's Son knows no idols, but he does know his Father. Health in this world is the counterpart of value in heaven. It is not my merit that I contribute to you, but my love, for you do not value yourself. When you do not value yourself, you become sick. But my value of you can heal you, because the value of God's Son is one. When I said, "My peace I give unto you," I meant it. Peace comes from God through me to you. It is for you, although you may not ask for it. We are told in this section that when one does not value oneself, one becomes sick, and to see oneself as a separated, isolated self is to devalue oneself as limited and as weak. Thus, the recognition that all minds are joined in unity is the means to bring about true healing. One is joined together with everyone and everything in love, one's true source, and thus one is part of divine love. Love, or any other part of love, cannot then be sick. To believe that a creation of love can be sick is to believe that a part of source can suffer and die. Thus, to see anyone as a weak and vulnerable body, as the ego sees one, is but to attack the divinity in them, and is an attack on the truth. Love created one as love, and the formless, eternal, loving presence that one is cannot be sick or die.